Hello, welcome to another book review. I'm your host, Kristen, and today I will be reviewing the YA fantasy book, House of Night, Tempted, by PC and Kristen Cast. In case you are interested in reading this book afterward, content warnings in this book are blood, violence, ableism, racism, exotification, slurs, sexism, transphobia, murder, abuse, sex shaming, and homophobia. For this review, I will start with the overall plot, then world building, and finally the characters. There will also be spoilers in this review. Let's begin. After banishing Kelowna and Neferet from Tusala, Zoe and Co must deal with the fallout. Although no longer within the city, Kelowna can still visit Zoe's dreams. When Aphrodite receives another vision involving Zoe's death, however, they must figure out what Neferet and Kelowna are planning. Meanwhile, Stevie Ray finds an injured Ravenmocker, and knowing what it's like to lose one's humanity, decides to heal him instead. After dragging the beast to a shed and bandaging his wounds, Stevie Ray must now keep the Ravenmocker a secret. Okay, what is it with these books and barely doing anything in the beginning? The chapters with Stevie Ray rescuing the Ravenmocker, which is pretty interesting, are few and far between. The rest of the early chapters are more boyfriend drama and Stark recovering from a mild burn that is treated as life-threatening. When the group finally figures out that Zoe's potential death will take place in Italy, Zoe and Co, minus Stevie Ray, decided to go there to warn the High Council of Neferet and Kelowna. However, this also leads to one of the biggest issues with the book, in that Zoe decides to go to the place where she could die, when her specifically going wasn't needed. If she had no choice to go, say because of a situation that only her powers could solve, that would be a little more reason to why she would risk dying. There's also the issue with Stevie Ray's arc, in that she doesn't really have one. I'll get more into that in her character review. For world building, the most the reader learns is more about the High Council. Overall, the High Council is merely composed of ruling vampire women, who had the final say in vampire law. Unfortunately, nothing much is explored beyond that, so not much new there. There's also the detail of Zoe accepting Stark's oath, despite not really knowing what it meant at first. So basically, she decided to sign the contract without reading the terms and conditions, which is really dumb. Speaking of Zoe, once again, Zoe is an awful person. Although not as bad as last time, she still makes some rude comments, like stating that maybe the Red Fudgings were meant to die. Also, Zoe, who grew up in what is supposedly a semi-Catholic household for 3 years, cannot figure out what Kelowna means when he says that he will separate the wheat from the chaff, even though that's a Bible verse. The worst action Zoe commits in the book, however, was that she was a horrible person to her partner, Eric. Though Eric merely wants to talk about Zoe cheating on him, Zoe gets angry and defensive, saying that Eric will either have to deal with the polyamorous relationship that he did not consent to, or break up. Naturally, Eric decides to break up with her, and everyone, especially Zoe, vilifies him for it. So yeah, in this book, Zoe is a tiny bit better. Saying those words felt weird. For Stevie Ray, let's talk about her arc, or rather her lack of one. Although the premise starts off okay, with Stevie Ray having to constantly lie over and over, there's no satisfying conclusion. Although her lying does eventually come back to bite her, to the point where she almost dies, Stevie Ray continues to lie afterward. In most stories, the whole point of mistakes coming back to bite the character is so the character will stop doing the action that got them there in the first place. However, this arc completely falls flat here. Not to mention that although Stevie Ray is being burned alive in the sun, there's barely any emotional impact to it. The most the text described it is as Stevie Ray is in pain. That's it. I'm not asking for a full-on gore fest, given that this is YA, but a little more description would be nice. The most Aphrodite does in this book is receive a vision about Zoe dying, along with Zoe causing the end of the world if she ever gets together with Kelowna. However, this all seems a little excessive, especially since Zoe is already getting information from Kelowna in her dreams. Having not one, but two people nudge the protagonist forward seems a little overkill and comes off as talking down to the reader. As much as Stark uses the fact that he's Zoe's warrior to bully his way into things, he's pretty awful at his job. Furthermore, he is still arrogant, but few characters tell him off for it, instead saying that it is part of his charm. However, when it comes down to protecting Zoe, his only job, he completely fails in the fact that he lets her soul be shattered. Also, the characters continue to brush the atrocities he committed under the rug, so yeah, I still hate Stark and still wish that he wouldn't be a part of this. Except for Kelowna visiting Zoe in her dreams, he and Nephra don't reappear until the last few chapters. When they do, they're as hot-headed and obvious as ever, despite the other characters wanting the reader to think differently. For instance, Nephra reveals her plan to put vampires back on top and goes as far as to threaten the High Council, even though she has no real official power anymore. Overall, I give this book 1.5 stars. Though it was by no means a masterpiece, this book was at least better than the last one. We're halfway there.